The same applies also, of course, to the mainstream press, which ran all these stories. It wasn't just the BBC. And day after day after day, and I would say to my colleagues in the British media, many of whom I deeply respect as journalists, that they really, if you're going to publish something, all this kind of material about Jeremy Corbyn, and it's now being challenged, you do have a absolute duty as a human being, but also above all as a journalist, to come back and explain why these attacks on my journalism, or I was wrong and I was right, or to say, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. Nothing dishonorable about that, just to say, I made a mistake, I've looked and seen what I've written, and I actually got this wrong, but I think this may have been right, or something of the sort. And I cannot understand, because journalists, this is the double standard of journalists, I find tricky, i.e. they're constantly political journalists, holding up governments or politicians to account, saying that, yet when their own act, and that's what they are for, is to hold authority and power to account. But then when anybody criticizes them, it's either met with a sort of deep umbrage, or in this case, total silence.
Well, you know,
I think that had to go at the BBC.
Yeah, a lot of the people who've been in touch with us, and a lot, of course, far more on social media and elsewhere, are still very angry, actually, particularly with the Guardian newspaper, because a lot of people, essentially, whether they like Jeremy Corbyn or not, but wanted to see the end of a Conservative government, very upset because they think that some of the Guardian journalists were really quite complicit in what was going on. And what the point they're also making is that to a degree this is continuing. You mentioned the Ford report that was set up. Of course, it takes a bit of work, as you know, Richard, to look at all of this stuff and to do some proper journalism. But the Ford report, which was pretty castigating, really, and the Labour Party promised to act on it. There's been very little reporting of that. There's been, as far as I could see, no reporting really at all about the fact that a Jewish member who was elected to the Labour Party's ruling body, its National Executive Committee, was suspended 2 days before the conference for speaking to some prescribed paper 2 years ago. I mean, some nonsense. And they took away her visitor's pass, and also that in sort of committing to a side of the argument within the Jewish community, the Labour Party appears to have sided with one group of people against another, and hence we're seeing an awful lot of the Jewish Labour Party members being expelled.
Very quickly say, Mark. I mean, clearly there is going to be a sort of omerta applied to this entire thing. So please, anyone watching, share these films as widely as you can, because it's the only way. I think the truth is now out there, and once the truth's out there, you can't put it back in the bottle. But it needs to be more widely distributed, and that's the only way it's going to happen, is people sharing it individually. Can
I say something too, that I was billed on the publicity for this as a maker of the film. I'm not. I appeared on it, and I was shown stuff and asked to comment. And I find it very shocking, and it does make me feel that I needed to reinvestigate the journalism. I'm really a columnist, actually. But what I wrote during the time, and I've been doing this for some time. I think we have to do this, and this film, I think, particularly the second film, although I think all the films should be watched, is a landmark piece of journalism. And I think it will go a long way I think it will be looked back on in 10, 20, 30 years as the turning point in the understanding of this issue and of the contemporary history of Britain and the Middle East and the Labour Party, and also, of course, of the British media, which needs to look deep into its soul.
Thank you.